you see that comment someone left on one of my videos saying about I should do a parody of Aaron Terrence Hughes? It's not going to happen, mate. What do you mean, why? Have you seen how fierce that man can be? I tell you what, condoms and Aaron Terrence Hughes, two things I don't fuck with. Word to your mother, my name's Steve, this channel is Fragrance. Thanks for tuning in, it's appreciated. Today I'm going to give a full review of a fragrance from Aaron Terrence Hughes, and it is probably the easiest, most accessible, easiest to wear type fragrance from his collection, and that fragrance is Blood Orange. So before I kind of get into the main review, I just kind of wanted to add some commentary on the sheer hype that Aaron's been getting. So Aaron has kind of had a bit of a whirlwind kind of intro into, not into fragrances, but into the YouTube community kind of through his work with Chris. Now, I've never met the man. He seems really nice and he gets on really well with Chris, who's a good mate of mine, so I'm sure I would get on really well with Aaron if I met him. He seems perfectly pleasant. I personally find his reviews and he's just so insightful. I find his videos on his channel and with Chris really entertaining and really interesting, and I love his kind of sheer honesty, and you can see his honesty is driven by passion. The fragrances really mean something to him, so he's clearly quite passionate about him. So sometimes if something he doesn't like it's his kind of passion fueled by his kind of knowledge of how that's been created that kind of gives this just sheer brutal honest review and feeling, which I really find entertaining and I enjoy. So I've got no issues with the man, but I do know that he seems to be kind of a little bit kind of divisive in the community in regards of some people's opinions towards him. Some love that honesty, such as me, but some people are finding him a bit, I don't know, I think they're just getting a bit defensive or kind of, I don't know, they just kind of don't like his just brutalness, I guess. So, as I say, I've got no issues with the man. I've been fortunate enough to wear quite a few and try quite a few of his fragrances. Not all of them. I've not purchased any, and I have had some samples kind of given to me. Now, I'm not going to say where from, because I know Aaron isn't a big fan of people decanting or kind of giving samples of his fragrance other than through official routes. So I'm not going to kind of say where I got them from, but I didn't pay for them, so nobody's making any money off of his kind of work in that regard. So they're not kind of been selling them to me. They've just been kindly donated, so thank you to those that have. So I've tried a few of them. So before I kind of get into the review of Blood Orange, I'll just give a quick overview. Now, if I'm honest, which I'm sure Aaron would appreciate because he is the king of honesty, the fragrances haven't gone down all that well in my household as a whole. Didn't really care. I didn't mind the opening too much on Slut. I think the opening's kind of fine, but I actually much preferred the dry down of Slut. I think that's where it kind of really comes into its own. And if I'm honest, I didn't actually find it that slutty. I found it at the dry down quite a very nice, sophisticated fragrance. My wife did not like it. She didn't really give it a chance because she hated the opening so much. I actually sprayed it on her arm and it was only on there for a few minutes. She hated the opening so much she went and washed it off. So that one did not go down well. Next up, I tried Onyx. Now, Onyx is an oud based fragrance and it was featured in one of Chris's recent videos. And some of his favourite ouds rated by Monica, and she loved Onyx, so I was quite excited to kind of smell it, but I'm not an oud fan, so I was quite intrigued. Now, I first smelled Onyx on a paper strip, and what I would say with Onyx is definitely try it on your skin if you're going to sample it, because on the paper, the rose was really prominent. It was the most prominent note to me by far. It was really kind of strong, and so for that reason it came across as quite feminine on the paper strip, and I think that with maybe the musk, it just made it come across as very powdery and quite sort of talky on the strip. So I was a bit kind of disappointed in that regard. It kind of caught me off guard. I was really surprised because I was expecting a very strong, prominent oud, which I didn't really get. But then once I tried it on skin, it was a lot more balanced. On skin, it was a bit more masculine because the rose wasn't as prominent on my skin, and the oud and the patchouli come through a little bit more stronger from the base to kind of make it a bit more balanced on my skin. So I wouldn't say it was the most masculine fragrance in the world, but it was a lot more kind of unisex in that regard because of the oud and the patchouli kind of pushing out a bit more. It came across as a bit more masculine on my skin, but the rose is still very prominent. So if you're not a rose fan, I would say that's probably not one for you. But it is a nice fragrance, but not one that I would kind of purchase, and not one for me if I'm honest. Another fragrance that I've been fortunate enough to try is Santal Extreme. Now, this one I was really excited to try because I do love sandalwood. Again, I was just a little bit, if I'm honest, a little bit underwhelmed. It just wasn't quite what I was expecting. I don't know. It's, again, my wife wasn't a huge fan. Normally, I mean, to be fair, my wife is quite a harsh critic, as some of you well know, but quite often anything that smells slightly mature or slightly earthy or kind of anything like that, she normally says, oh, you smell like my dad. But strangely for that one, she joked, she said, actually, you don't smell like my dad, you smell like my mum. Which I don't know why, I don't know if her mum smells particularly animalic kind of sandalwood, I don't know. But for me, it was just a bit kind of dry, and it come across as a bit, it's a bit more mature. Again, it did strike me as something that a more mature kind of gent would wear. And again, not a bad fragrance, very well blended. You can smell the quality, but just not really one for me. But this kind of goes into the whole debate of kind of what are you looking for from a fragrance. Now, I'm a bit of, when it comes to fragrances, a bit of a basic bitch. I'm a bit of a designer kind of boy. I like to think that I'm a bit more of just a lay person. I like smelling good. Now that's probably the thing here to remember when I'm talking about these sort of fragrances, and particularly niche fragrances. A lot of proper frag heads, particularly niche snobs, they want to smell interesting. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for an interesting fragrance. They want to smell interesting. I want to smell good, and there's a difference. Those two things don't always overlap in the Venn diagram. They and that's the key thing to remember when you're looking at reviewers, is kind of getting a gauge for what they're looking for and what they want. I'm sure there's lots of kind of frag heads out there in sort of niche snobs that someone said to them that they've received a compliment, and that compliment is something like, oh, what fragrance are you wearing? That's really interesting. Now, is that a compliment? Are they saying that you smell good? I don't know, but then that's not what they're looking for. They want to sort of people to notice what they're wearing, and they want to smell interesting. Me, mate, I just want to keep it simple. I want to smell good. And quite often with very niche or complex fragrances, that doesn't always mean they can smell good. I'm not saying they can't, but they can smell, quite often they can smell very complex, very interesting, very busy or involved or whatever, but they don't always what are just a nice, simple, straightforward, you smell good. And one of the other fragrances that I've smelled from Aaron is Tobacco, Oud and Vanilla. Now, I was really excited to kind of smell this one because this one gets a lot of hype and a lot of love. Now, I would say this one smells interesting. I can really appreciate this as somebody that's sort of really interested in fragrances. I can really appreciate this as a creation. It's really well done. I can smell the quality. It's very well blended, and it's very good quality. You can smell like the oud and the vanilla. It's not synthetic at all. It's really kind of, you can smell the quality from the ingredients. But again, it's a funny one because I did actually enjoy it, and it's one of those fragrances where I enjoy smelling it, but I don't think I want to smell of it, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I am with that one. It smells interesting. I can really appreciate it. Now, for those of you that don't know, like Aaron, I am a chemist as well. So I've got a degree in chemistry. I'm a full member of the Royal Society of Chemistry. I worked for the Royal Society of Chemistry as well for several years. I'm a chartered scientist, and I worked in the pharmaceutical industry in a laboratory for about 11 years. So I do know chemistry, but I'm not claiming to know perfumery. I'm not an expert, so I know a lot about the different techniques. I know a lot about some of the chemicals and reagents and some of the raw materials, but I never claim to be an expert at all. And my knowledge of perfumery is absolutely nothing compared to Aaron. So I'm not going to kind of ever try and break down a fragrance like he does or describe it like he does. But just from an interest in fragrances, I can really appreciate Tobacco, Oud and Vanilla as a really cool, creative, good smell, but I just don't want to smell of it. But I would urge you to smell it because I think there's a lot of people, I can see why people like that one so much. And it's one that I would recommend people try because I really appreciate it, and I do like the smell. I just don't want the smell of it. So that brings us on to my favourite from the collection, and there's no surprise why this is my favourite. Anybody that watches my channel will know what notes and what accords I really enjoy, and they are here in this fragrance. So the fragrance is called Blood Orange. At the top you will get blood orange, tangerine and mandarin. In the mids there's some jasmine sambac. In the base there's some musk, there's some amber, there's some sandalwood, and there's some ambergris. So as I say, I love that juicy mandarin, citrusy orange type accord, and this fragrance does that really well. So what do you get from this fragrance? I mean, if I'm honest, the notes kind of give it all you need to know. Just read the note list and that's what you get from this fragrance. It is kind of, it's the Ronsil because it does what it says on the tin really. So you will get this lovely mandarin, juicy, orangey, tangerine, it's the notes, accord straight from the top, and that does last though, so it doesn't kind of dissipate too much. Obviously it dies down a little bit, but that kind of accord is prominent and it lasts throughout. Now what's nice about it is, in this particular fragrance, is it is very natural smelling and organic in the sort of fruit sense of the word rather than the chemistry sense of the word, but it is very, yeah, it's very kind of natural smelling. Where one of my favourite kind of mandarin based fragrances, Clinique's Happy, which is like 20-25 quid, is very synthetic. I'd never deny that. It's got a very synthetic kind of core, but I do really enjoy it. It kind of has the same, you know, ultimately the result is the same, and I get that smell and I love it. But it is a very synthetic. This is not. It's a very natural smelling kind of juicy citrus, orangey citrus. And because of that, because it's so natural, it's I think the quality of the ingredients come across well, and it does smell very real and natural. And so there's a very slight kind of subtle earthiness to it, which again just emphasizes, makes you feel like you are smelling like an orange or a tangerine or something. It kind of has that effect where, and because it comes across as so natural and not synthetic, it doesn't have the same kind of zinginess that you sometimes get from synthetics in that regard. Like Clinique's Happy has that accord, but it is kind of got that synthetic, and there's a bit of a zing in your nose. It's kind of, you can tell it's a synthetic. This doesn't. It does smell, it doesn't have that zing, which probably means it does lose a small amount of pop from it, because that kind of zing is very kind of very noticeable and obvious. Where this is very natural, so it does lose some of that zing, but it does smell, as I say, very organic. There's a slight subtle earthiness in that sort of orangey citrus that again makes it just smell like, you feel like you're smelling an actual orange or tangerine, etc. And then as it dries down, it goes into the base, and the sort of ambergris and sandalwood just start kind of coming out and blending so well with the citrus oranginess of the thing. It gives it this very subtle kind of smooth, almost creaminess to it. It really just makes it smooth, and again that probably takes some of the edge off of the sort of sharp citruses, but they're so natural and organic, as I mentioned. And into the dry down, it just feels very smooth and very almost kind of creamy, but it doesn't detract from the orangey citrus. That is what this fragrance is, and the base notes really they're just like the supporting act. So it's like you've got the star is this orange mandarin citrus, and then the ambergris and the sandalwood are just like the extras, or the backing cast, or the supporting cast, the production team that just make that the star of the show and just support it in such a nice way. And it comes across as a lovely, smooth, natural smell that just does smell really, really good. So on to the performance then. On Aaron's website, he says that this fragrance is probably one of the strongest, best performing fragrances that he's made. But if I'm honest, I didn't sort of quite get that performance. It's not bad at all, but the projection isn't as strong. I applied quite a lot, and I thought it was going to be a real massive projecting kind of sort of beast, and it's not. I mean, in the first hour or so, you'll get a really sort of nice projection, but then it does start sort of drawing in and wearing quite close. It lasted a long time. Again, just to reference Clinique's Happy, that does not last very long on my skin, but this does. This easily lasted like a full day, like over 8 hours probably. I could still smell it on my skin. However, what I would say is after about 3 to 4 hours, I mean in the first 3 to 4 hours, first hour it had a really nice projection, and then the first 3 to 4 hours I was getting some quite nice wafts of it. But after that it did become on my skin a bit more of a skin scent, which did last. The skin scent lasted all day, and you know, 8+ hours I could still smell it on my skin. It was still there, but it was just not projecting at the point. It was a skin scent from about the 4-hour mark. But again, if you're getting a bit close and personal, you could still smell it. So it is there and it does last, but I didn't get the beast projection and sillage that kind of Aaron says on his website, but that's just my skin, it's all subjective. So there you go. If you want a lovely natural smelling orangey citrus that does last, that's not going to choke anybody out, then by all means give this a go. I would say this is definitely, of the ones I've tried, the sort of easiest, most accessible one from Aaron's range. He's very creative, and he does kind of like to smell interesting and push the boat out and make something that's very creative. By his standards, this is like the safest, but it's not boring at all. I really enjoy this fragrance and I really like it, and this is right up my street. But relative to the others, this is probably the safest bet. But of course, if you don't like orange or citrus, then you're not going to. But it is a lovely, lovely smelling fragrance that I really enjoy, and it does last a hell of a long time. So you don't necessarily need to apply, but you don't. On my skin, I just didn't really get the projection. Now, this is £165 though for 50ml. So would I pay that for it? Unfortunately, no, I wouldn't, but that's just me. As I said before, I don't really buy niche fragrances just because I can't really justify the price, if I'm honest. I can afford them, I'm humble brag, but I just don't, I don't think I feel like I need to or kind of want to really. It has to be something really special. And for me, this doesn't do it. The most expensive fragrance I've ever bought is about £110. So that's where I'm at, and that's just me. But there's lots of people out there that will happily spend that on a fragrance. And if you do, and you love a lovely natural smelling orange, then I'd give this a go. Me personally, I will still stick to Happy from Clinique for about 20–25 quid. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. This is just my little take. As I say, I've never met Aaron. I've got no issues with the man. He seems perfectly nice, and I've got no reason not to kind of like him. And I hopefully one day I will get to meet him. I'm sure we will get on, and hopefully he's not bothered or offended by this video, because I've just been honest, which is kind of what he stands by. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think to Aaron's fragrances, if you've tried them, and what is your favourite. And I will see you for another video soon. Take care, much love.